This meeting is live streamed. Hey, hi. It's Bags, Nick, Jeff DI, Gotham, GP, GPiza.
What up?
It's it's our Power Hour podcast.
Yeah. Hey, so real quick, we're riddling with Cookie on Thursday.
Yeah, Cookie on Thursday,
Okay.
11 a.m. Eastern time.
So 10 Central.
Yeah.
I know my time zones.
Yeah, that's what time it is. We were just chopping it up a little bit about what our picks were for this week. And I'm not gonna say Nick forgot, but Nick forgot. But it's okay.
I mean, it probably won't be as good as my. Oh, are you talking to me or are we frozen? Sorry.
No, we're live, brother.
Yeah. Okay.
We live up in the hizzy. So yes, Cookie on Thursday, market hours, 11 a.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. Central time for those in the Central time zone. It's always good to catch up with Cookie, and I'm sure he'll be laying some stuff on us. But he also wants to just for us to have questions thrown at us. And I kind of like that too. I think that's fun. Because Cookie makes himself available and questions to Cookie's always a lot of fun. We take all the questions that we get here, but we like to kick it around a little bit, and it's good for him to be part of the question and answer session of the podcast.
Yeah.
Hey, what's going on with Tesla? I mean, we're having a problem here at 250.
Yeah, but we did not struggle at the weekly 200 SMA. We popped right through that, as we talked about last week. 254.50 is the island gap down from when he bought Twitter. This is clearing 300 on this run. Will it maintain up there because of how quick? Probably
No.
not. But it's going to clear 300 in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's gonna at least. I should say I'm hoping because I sold a bunch this morning, about half my position. I obviously didn't get 260, but I figured we were gonna probably kind of build out a range somehow between here and 220. So I was kind of hoping like the big candle that goes from 220 to 231. That candle is one of the biggest volume bars on the chart. So that's just the one that I'm kind of watching. But I agree. I think it's gonna rip like it. Yeah.
Rip.
It's pretty much spent
a
year and a half accumulating, right? So
rip.
When the breakout happens, no one wants to believe it, and people will sell at every moment because they're so painfully annoyed by the fact that it didn't move, and then be pissed off when it hits 300. Like, oh, I should have held more. Blah blah blah. It's the way. It's the Tesla way, most importantly, but it's the way of the markets.
Yeah.
All right. 300 selling the position. Got it. Check.
I mean, I think it's going higher. I think it's going all-time highs ultimately.
Oh. All right. So GP, when it hits 300, I'll sell half. And then Nick, when it hits all-time highs, I'll sell the other half.
I will buy more.
Yeah, I'm probably in the camp that it clears 300 and then gives us an awful downtrend, right?
Okay.
Like where people will be like, "See, I told you so," and
it just
chops. And then it takes off, which I think is into next year, is not this year, obviously, but I think we have a decent. A close above 330 this year would be awesome, but I think it's going to be a wild ride to get there. But I think next year is the year where it starts to move higher.
Sure. I thought it was such a.
So I shouldn't be selling that. I should be holding GP. Hey, how about this? You just call me,
Why
and
don't you
say,
figure
okay,
out what kind of investor you
now
want to
it's
be?
time to sell Tesla.
Tell me what type of investor you want to be. The guy who sold when he got 100% or the guy who sold when he got 1,000%?
Oh,
I'm
both.
I'm
Oh,
I'm
them fighting
I'm
words.
retired. That's what type of investor I am.
Sure. I mean, I'm just actively going to manage it. I like my position. I like my price. Yeah, I'm happy with it. So
Yeah, no, I'm not. I I like to bring these questions to you guys because we talk about this is a good time to
honestly,
buy a lot, but we don't talk about, oh, you should be selling it. And it's interesting to hear that you sold some already, Nick. And my price target was 300, and that's what GP was saying. So I don't know. I
well,
might scale out of some up there.
I had a sloppy inverse head and shoulders drawn on the daily, and I had a measured move, like a target at 260. So like it was in my more or less trade plan to sell out up here. And I think the
Yeah,
funny
that's
thing
good.
about this trade is that like I don't know, it frustrated the fuck out of so many people before it popped, and like how tight it got right there on the 50 day. Oh,
Yeah. And the week it decides to go is the shortest week of the year where no one's really there.
sure.
Right? People on vacation, all that other stuff. Uh, yeah, it has done this for as long as it's been a public stock. So
Yeah.
it's max pain both directions, no matter what you try to say it won't be. It is it is not one of those stocks that is 80, 90, 95% institutionally owned. It's typically sits between 40 and 60%. So the swings are wild when they happen in both directions. And so this is one of those stocks, in my opinion, is you buy, hold, and hold your nose at the same time. Right? Like if we were a trader, this is a different conversation. I'm talking about as an investment. So
Yeah.
um, it rewards you for long-term loyalty, but it makes you pain and suffering, cuts you at the knees, punches you in the eye, um, for every other day that it's not those long investor days. So
So not a good trader. We've mentioned not good traders before.
I think it is a great trader for the
the way
most
it
part.
moves, yeah, but dude, it literally did nothing for 6 weeks, and then the robotaxi pop gave it all back, started breaking moving averages again, and then on the weekly time frame it started reclaiming, but on the daily it was breaking, so it was hard to decipher. But as we always say, longer time frames matter, right? So
Yeah. I wanted to bring up Netflix because earnings season's coming up.
if
So
someone can explain to me Netflix's price action over the last 4 years, I would love to see it, because I call bullshit on all of it.
It's just stair
Like
stepping.
what? But the fact that it was the first to bottom in May
Oh
2022,
yeah.
we started talking about the market's no longer in a downtrend and it's sideways, right? Like we've been nowhere for months now. We had our big move down, and so that's when Netflix bottomed, when the market bottomed back in May, June 2022, and it was first out of the gate. It was great, but now it got within $7 of all-time highs, and it just does not have the power to push through. Almost every other stock that has had amazing rebounds has pushed through. So I would love to hear this. My bottom line is there's just not enough buyers. It is 82% institutionally owned.
Have faith.
And what's that?
I said have some faith. We're going to all-time highs.
Yeah, well, pretty much there at this point, right? Like, but
Yeah.
we talked about this. I remember this conversation clearly, right? The Lamb research conversation back in January 2022. All this power, and it couldn't take out all-time highs at that point. And so I'm not saying Netflix falls in that camp, but it's interesting that they're doing everything in their power to make sure it does not go before earnings. If you look at it week in and week out, it is tons of call selling and
Yeah. I
just
mean, even if
selling.
they sold it, I feel like even if they sold it down, it would still look great. Like they could sell it down all the way down to they could fill that gap at like 450, 475, and I think it would still look great. And I bet you it would be bought up.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen. So
Yeah, I'm just
what the
saying, like,
hell?
I'm just saying if we went into like a corrective period and this thing just completely rolled, like it's got a nice looking floor there at like 535, 550, and if it undercut that down to like 500 and then balanced, oh, dude, I think that would set up a monster move and it would look great.
It needs it though, right? Like it doesn't have enough buyers to take the. I
Sure.
mean that wholeheartedly. Like it just doesn't have the buyers to take it higher. Maybe it's earnings that takes it higher, which is the case for Netflix all throughout the course of its history. Does jack and more jack until earnings, and then either has a 27% move in the first 13 seconds after earnings, or it does nothing until then. And so at the same time, it's also up 100 and what 160 points since the last earnings.
Yeah,
And that's the whole conversation for me is it it had the drop from the prior earnings to gather more
oh,
buyers, and now it's gotten all those buyers and it still can push over all-time highs. So my instinct is that it's going lower before it goes higher yet again.
sure. All right. I
I
mean,
I bring up Netflix because I was prepping for our picks, and just in case I need a short in my back pocket uh,
Netflix is your
for
short.
catch up. Well, I mean, Nick, you're the one saying it's going to lose 30%. That you would love to
I'm
see
I'm
that.
not I'm not saying that it will. I'm just saying if it did, it would still look good to me.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a retest of the retest of the
30% onto
retest.
my short would look really good to me if I chose to short it,
All right, fine.
which I'm not choosing to do. I was just looking at the chart and I was like, I mean, for a chart that's up and to the right for the past 2 years straight,
Yeah, seriously.
it looks like it's sort of petering out there toward that prior all-time high. And anyway, that doesn't mean it can't go higher, but I think GP put all the points very succinctly. It's meeting some challenges at the moment.
Yeah, and I can guarantee you next Thursday at 4 p.m. with 13 seconds gone into the aftermarkets, there will be a 20% move in this stock.
There will be a
And
reaction because there always is a reaction on Netflix earnings.
yeah, and so that 20% gets you that bigger retest. All the newer buyers off the last gap also get blown the hell out, and maybe that's what finally takes it higher. Um, it needs buyers ultimately. It doesn't have the buyers. It doesn't and it's shown that its fundamentals are inherently better than where we were when it was at 700 last time in 2021, 3 years ago, right? Like your cash flow, I think their free cash flow is $6 billion a year. They're the only thing I can think of is they potentially announce a split. Because they have in the past around 700 as well before. Um, that could take it higher, but bring in more buyers, I guess, or whatever it is. But their fundamentals are already better, Nick, right? Like they're much better than they were when we were at 700, and you can't get buyers to step in and out and over. It
Sure.
tells you that those fundamentals aren't enough. And they're not reporting sub numbers anymore. So
It'll be interesting to see what that expected move is. I doubt it's 20%, but I would say it's a pretty big swing.
yeah, it just always has 20% move when no one's expecting it, right? And
Yeah.
everyone's bulled up saying it's gonna break out here.
Yeah. Nick, when we hopped on this call and I hit the go live button, you were saying, how about this market? I love it. Please expand on that. What about this market and what is it you're loving?
I mean, mainly just the stocks that I watch. Like I mean, I think you guys all know the kind of stocks I like to trade. And semis are
Palantir works.
setting up again where like CLAC and LRCX are pushing towards highs. Now looks great. Palantir looks amazing. Tesla had a major rip. All of the megas basically like are pushing and have had some like solid bars. Apple just a fucking ripper. I mean, as long as you like deployed capital every time you got like an opportunity, like you should be sitting pretty well. I think. Like I don't know. I like look at those like for Apple to hold those basically the low of that second massive rally bar. That's fucking crazy. Um, Meta massive bar. I don't know. Like I just think that like for a trader or like an active trader, I think it's been a pretty gift giving market.
But this is the thing, right? Like let's talk about Meta for a second, right? Um this is the type of market this is though, right? Like
Yeah.
that's a pretty solid move on Meta. And what does it do by breaking to all-time highs on a Friday? It
Yeah, and I
immediately reverses not the whole bar, but it just reverses the whole move, right? Like so you have this okay, this sustained uptrend, but insane choppiness at the same time. Like this is typically a setup that in our past, right? This is pre-COVID, Nick, Ben, but this is a setup that you push into all-time highs that this is getting ready to have that bigger move, right? But it had an insane drop on earnings for no reason, got bought up, got to all-time highs again, and the first instinct is to sell.
I mean the
It's
only
low volume, I get
uh, the,
it, but this is the frustrating part for a lot of traders, right? Like this is
yeah,
typically set up to.
I think that's one like I think that's maybe to kind of pivot. That's the benefit of like like trail stops, and to I don't know, recognize the environment that you're in. To like to a degree, you've got to take like a napkin technician approach where like maybe use various moving averages as like a way to trail stops and like stop giving a shit what the day-to-day kind of candles look like. Just pay more attention to kind of the overall trend in place. Higher like if you're long stock, just maybe pay more attention to the higher lows versus like how, yeah, like again what each day-to-day candle is kind of giving. At least that's just kind of the approach that I've been taking. Like I don't know.
Yeah, and so like if you're looking at this from that perspective, right, and you're trying to figure out like, and most likely this will reverse tomorrow and take out all-time highs because this is just your FU candle, right? But what you're looking at this candle from a daily perspective is on Friday we broke out, we took out all-time highs
Yeah.
on an uptick in volume. We tried to push higher today and immediately got sold, but then we also got sold below the recent pivot high, all-time highs, which was right before earnings, right? So that like trailing stops and moving averages is one thing, but I also, me, I like pivots, and I'm like,
Yeah.
that's interesting to me because in general, I would be insanely cautious here because it tried to break higher. Now that's and on the follow through, it got sold hard, right? Not a lot of volume, so you can say that it's an FU bar and tomorrow it goes out, but you have to live through the pain of this to get to the other side.
Yeah, for sure.
And so like every instinct in my body would say this is a failed breakout.
Yeah, if it and again, to your point, and in the back of my mind, if this does really show that is going to start to fail here, my tune would flip, and I would probably be thinking price is going to revert back down to the low end of the range, and if anything, shake out below the low. So by the time price would actually get down to like the mid 400s, hopefully the 200-day would catch up to the low end of that range. And then any kind of shake under the 200-day would just shake so many people out, and it would in a longer term base. That would look fucking fantastic.
Yeah, I, I
It's just
agree. Like if we're looking at longer
I
term
necessarily
trends,
want to see what's up.
I agree. Longer term trends is not, I guess, not what I'm talking about here, but like active daily traders are getting smacked up and down every other day, right? Like it's just if you're active and you're looking at this is a failed breakout, right? And you should be
Sure.
selling your position. If you're a swing trader, it's a different conversation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you bought after 10 a.m. on Friday, you're even money or underwater right now
Yeah.
after such
Yeah.
a strong day.
Yeah, exactly. After such a strong day, after the attempt to follow up on the strong day as well, right? That's the part that
Yep.
that triggers the spidey senses is like, look, it tried to follow through and immediately found sellers to break back below pivots. So ideally what you would want to see is a close above this pivot by 4 p.m. today. Otherwise, to me, then the pivot's what 531.49. So you would need to see a rally of like $4 or $5 here in the last hour to clear over that pivot to if you're in a short-term position to stay long here. Otherwise, you can stay long, but you're not a short-term trader here because
You
it's
are now an investor.
right, and that's the thing, right? Like, and then you have like if you're looking at a lot of these names, look at Amazon, right? As soon as it got to 200, as soon as it Bezos stepped in and started selling. Yes, the market's absorbing it, and we're okay. We're not bad. Every sell by Bezos has been a bad sell. So even if you talk about short-term pressure to sell, there's every time we get to these resistance points, a new piece of evidence comes out that there's more resistance setting up here, right? So there, and then you have Google and a lot of these, right? Like Netflix is the one that we talked about a bit more in depth, but it's not just Netflix. It's unless you're talking about Costco. Costco, for some reason, just can't stop going higher. But everything else seems to come to resistance and just finds a hard stop.
I mean, I've been waiting 2 years for Amazon to go this high, so
That should be somewhat to be expected, just considering we're climbing, a massive 2022 wall.
Yeah, but who's going to get long? Here's my fundamental question here is that what market, so we have the Qs sitting in nosebleed territory, right? And it's been a steady grind higher. It's been like this since we talked about this in November, right? Talking about the lockout rally, and this is as lockout as you get. So
Yeah.
who's coming in here and buying to push this higher, right? That's the question I have to ask because I can't find a reason for anyone to step in and buy here. If I was a new investor and I had all the knowledge that I have technically, I'm waiting for a bigger pullback here. There's no reason I'd be going long here.
Yeah.
What would you guys do if you
No,
guys got absolutely stuffed with a bunch of money, like you won the lottery or something like that, and you wanted to invest in the stock market? Is this a point where you'd be investing into the stock market? Maybe a starter position.
it would. I
Okay,
mean,
I want to hear the reasoning.
I would be throwing my money more towards like IWM names, like names that just haven't I'm not saying that I'd be stepping in to throw on like a new long on the Qs here because it's just not a logical place for me to get involved on the long side. I should already be long if I'm in the Qs, but I'd have fibs drawn and just kind of like let's say the Qs started to churn while the IWM runs. Like there's plenty of room and reason for that to happen as money kind of moves around. So it's why I don't know. That's why if you take like a look at the IWM and all of a sudden the IWM literally just starts fucking ripping. Does the do the spies and the Qs run with it or do they take a breather?
Well, so far the evidence, Nick,
Yeah,
is that IW can't even do that. Right? Like so let's be real, like forget the rotation and all that other stuff.
sure.
IWM is made up of garbage names in general
Yeah.
that need rate cuts to move anywhere, right? Because they need the free money to fund their money losing businesses. I think it's like what 50 or 60% of the IWM small cap companies lose money on a year over year basis. So I hear the rotation name conversation, but
Even okay, so
I'm hesitant to even say that's a possibility because IWM maybe it just stays sideways. Maybe it doesn't do anything, right? Maybe it just goes sideways between this 200 and 206 range for another 6 months or another year.
or we just continue to melt. Like where the SPY and the Qs are right now, we're like mid trend. So it's like either you're long and you're sitting great and you're sitting on your fucking hands. That's what you really should be doing right now. Like if you were, I think, well, if you played this right, you should be maybe even starting to take some money off the table, but you should already be long. Like there shouldn't really be a question of, hey, I'm sitting in cash. What should I do right now? In my opinion.
Yeah, that's why the question was, you didn't
Yeah.
have this cash yesterday, you just got it today. What would you do, right? Like that's
I,
that. It's not that you missed the trend. The question is, what do you do once you're here and you're a money manager and you have money to manage, or you got an inheritance and you have to do that. So the question is, you wait, right?
yeah. Yes.
And I think that's general market sentiment is that you're going to grind. Things aren't going to struggle to push up higher and you're just going to wait for the larger pullback. Maybe it's elections, maybe it's next year, but putting money to work here when you can get 5% in treasuries just doesn't make any sense to me.
Or you could do my pick of the quarter and buy more Bitcoin.
That's your that's your pick.
That's my pick. Or do you
Yeah,
pick one of the ETFs? Or is Bitcoin okay?
whatever you want.
All right.
Really?
Yeah.
So I have coin as my pick.
Well,
Ooh.
coin was my second pick. I wanted Bitcoin, but I would have chosen Coinbase over the one of the ETFs.
Yeah, so coin's my pick. Obviously, I would like to say Connell, but we've talked about not doing leverage ETFs,
Yeah.
so we'll stick to Coinbase as is. But Coinbase, from my perspective, you're looking at a inside quarter. You're looking at 5, 6 inside months on it's building a handle, so to speak. It looks great. The Bitcoin volatility is also picking up here as you were talking about for your pick. To me, this is the shakeout before the breakout or the breakdown, whatever you want to call it. I don't know which way it's going to go, but based on the charts, I would say higher. Um, so yeah, I think we're in alignment, Ben.
Yeah. I actually took on some more. I haven't bought I haven't traded or bought any Bitcoin since below 10,000. And I bought some over the weekend. That dip into 53 was too good for me. So I'm still, my September thesis is still alive. It's holding on to that, rejected by that trend line I drew last week. But yeah, I bought some Bitcoin in the 53s.
Yeah, that overnight bar was great, right? Like when everyone kind of fell asleep, they decided to punch it higher.
Yeah. Well, and you've got to put your orders in. You can't just sit here and try to watch and buy it. So my stink bid uh was 53,999 and I got it. So there you go. That's my pick. The question is, we've had it really clean on how we do our picks of the quarter before, because we haven't used Bitcoin that trades 24/7, 365. So what price are we going to hold me accountable to?
Oh, that's good.
Um, Price as of now for all of us, right? As of this time at
Let's just call
3:30.
it 56K flat.
Okay.
Is that fair?
And that's fine. Just as of today is fine. It doesn't matter.
All right.
And I would say let's make this a end of quarter thing, right? Let's talk about end of price at the end of Q3, not some random Monday that we have,
Or
right?
just
What day specifically do you want this to be, GP?
Well, I think just the quarter marks a pretty big turning point from a money investment perspective, all that other stuff, that you could have a great winner going into the end of quarter, and then by the first 2 days of the next quarter, it could be down 20%, right? So I would say the end of quarter is September 30th, which is a Monday. Actually, it works this time.
All right. We will cash your coin price at the low of the day, GP. Nick,
I'm gonna go with ice.
ICE,
No,
Intercontinental Exchange.
I don't know. I was gonna go with, like
Cold-blooded.
I was gonna go with Palantir or something, but ice just more fits my style.
It looks great. It looks phenomenal. So
I mean, you gotta love it. It's like BlackRock. You gotta love it. Love it or hate it, it's going higher.
no Netflix, Nick.
Ah,
I'm joking.
no,
It's just
I'll
it's
say that for another. I'll say that for another time. Yeah. I
no,
think
I'm only messing. Netflix is just it's a great position, but it's just frustrating.
That would have been awesome, GP, if I just went with Coinbase and we wound up with the same thing, or I took yours. We've never had that before because we don't really talk about this in advance. So I guess we both could have the same pick.
Yeah, I would have chosen something different. I had a few picks, so it's not a
All
big
right.
deal.
yeah.
But yeah, coin is pretty much for inside months. Volume is pretty low.
And
It's
someone should
sitting,
AMD.
but AMD also looks good. That
Yeah,
means
AMD. Those are the three on my list. If you want exactly what I was looking at, those three specifically.
when did AMD and NVIDIA become contrarian of each other? Is that something new, or has that always been the case?
No, it's been pretty recent. I
Right?
was I was thinking
NVIDIA,
about the same thing, GP, not too long ago.
like all of a sudden they became contrarians. I always thought it was NVIDIA and AMD versus Intel, and now it's AMD versus NVIDIA, and Intel is just a useless piece of.
Well, I don't think it's AMD versus NVIDIA. I just think, like we talked about previously, with money flowing from one to another. Well, I've made a lot of gains in NVIDIA. Where can I put it? And I want it to stay in chips. Okay, AMD, right? Like,
Yeah, I just
or
thought it
vice
would
versa.
be. I thought it
NVIDIA is
would
not.
be
I'm pulling all my
Intel.
money out of every other semi and I'm going with NVIDIA.
Yeah.
What do you think of Marvell?
Love it. I talked about it last week briefly. I think it looks fantastic.
Yeah.
Nice and tight.
Yeah.
What do
Why
you
did
think of
it take
Marvell?
out all-time highs?
I mean, this is $100 stock all day, in my opinion. But what do you think, Nick?
I like it. I just it's not a name that I normally like pull up. It's obviously on my watch list. I think the 75 level is kind of where it needs to bust out of for it to really get moving. But I kind of agree with you. I almost lazily like picked it as my pick, just thinking if it could bust above 75, yeah, I think it tags 100 pretty easily. But
Marvell's my first ever 100%er, Nick.
really,
I still have shares from the low teen or the high teens.
all right, nice trade or investment, whatever.
Yeah, it's an investment. Those shares are an investment at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not like, top of my list or like, oh man, I gotta like own this thing, but yeah.
Hey, we got a few questions real quick for Gaga Papa. Did you guys discuss if Tesla is pulling back first or keep going higher? We didn't exactly discuss that. We said 300 and GP says higher next year. I don't know if it's going to pull back or not much. I don't. First, it's what's your definition of a pullback is. Um,
And time frame, right?
yeah, I mean, I could see it coming into the 230s, 234, bouncing off the 200 weekly wouldn't be a surprise to me. That's where that trend line is. So I could see that happening, but no, I think the juice is still with it. I think it's still going to go higher. That doesn't mean it marches straight to 300 from here, but I wouldn't think I personally would not think, based upon the chart, think that it's going to be a massive fall off or a 20% decline before it hits 300. But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Ultimately, right now, it's still the sixth series of lower highs since all-time highs. So once it clears that, it's a different conversation. But we hit 414 in November 2021. And then every single moment where it's popped back up has been a lower high. And this time is no different at this point. So maybe that overlying trend still kind of dominates. So for me, it would need to be that 265.20 level that it needs to clear. But yeah, if you're looking at it from a objective perspective, it hasn't made a higher high yet. So if it hasn't made a higher high, it's potential that it could fail pretty badly here, right? Or right below
Sure.
it might try again at 264 tomorrow and then fail or whatever it is. But I personally think it's going higher. But if you're looking at a chart from a higher high, it is higher lows technically since January, 101 to 138. So
Since January 23.
yeah.
Yes.
Right, so you can say that it's a lower low than that 144 mark or whatever, but technically it's not. Depends on when you pick it's subjective, right? But the subjective part is we have not made higher highs yet. That's reality.
All right, good buddy Pratt wants some opinions and thoughts on HUT.
It's been strong, man.
If Bitcoin's going higher, HUT's going higher.
Wow.
Didn't they already transition out of being
Oh, I have no
Bitcoin
idea.
miners?
I have no idea.
Didn't they
Yeah,
move into the AI space or something?
I have no idea. I don't keep up with this company.
Yeah, I don't either, but it looks good on the chart.
Yeah, that chart looks phenomenal. The weekly even looks great. What is it?
It's still similar to I don't know. Anyway, it looks good. It needs to clear this pivot high, I would say, of 1842. And then after that is the next pivot high of 2275.
It's also the weekly 200 there at 1830 GP.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So you've had one attempt, got smoked. Here's your second. No, sorry, you've had two attempts. No, three, is that? Jesus Christ.
Well, if you count December 23, it had
Yeah.
an attempt at it there. And then 2 weeks ago, June 24th, it had an attempt at it there. I wouldn't call last week an attempt. This would be attempt number 3 if
Yeah.
I were counting.
So that's kind of where your pivot point is. You need to see it clear. Volumes there to suggest it's going higher. Could go lower first, honestly. With that level of volume, you could see small, like lower volume consolidation. But looks like it's going higher. But the market makes a liar out of me every day, so
Nick, JFDI, CRISPR.
Crisp. Let me pull that bad boy up. I haven't.
those are the genome stocks.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I'm not really a fan. I've played Twist several times. Um, and I've been pretty fortunate and lucky with Twist, but Crisp just looks like a continual like boom and kick in the nuts. There's no follow through there. I'd say like if I was like I don't have any alerts currently set, but if I did, I'd just set them at like 88. Like fucking, I don't even want to be involved until this thing gets over 88, 90. But I don't know. There's not much really. It's not my kind of setup. It's under the 200 day. All the other moving averages are pointing
Yeah,
down.
it's under all the weeklies, right? So
So
you're kind of bottom fishing if you're entering right here,
yeah,
And
right?
bottom fishing in this market has been fairly painful, to be honest.
yeah.
Yeah, you're either riding the trend higher or you're riding the trend lower.
Yeah. You know what looks good?
Halo.
Roblox.
Oh, oh man, it is definitely looking better and better.
Staying tight, man. It's
Dude, you
it's
know what
got
also
it's
looks
got to break this 47.60 level, $48
So there was
take a
eventually.
look
decent
at
flow today in selling the August 37.50 puts and buying the August 50 calls. But I always, when that stuff happens after a nonstop uptrend, I'm always in question of if it can actually break out. But it finally filled the gap, the earnings gap. It's been pretty steady upstream climb since it got sold off on earnings. Uh, it looks pretty strong, has continued to look pretty strong. So,
would
uh,
EA be
but
in the same group as Roblox?
I think different demographics.
EA is.
Yeah. Roblox
Yeah.
is younger, like kids, and EA is more like adult gamers.
Okay. Dude, I think EA when this thing finally goes, it's gonna go.
Is it ever going to go will remain the question.
GP,
No?
I looked up Hut 8 real quick, and they have an AI vertical, but it
Okay.
doesn't say that they have completely shut down mining.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. As we're talking AI, AMD is looking to close out at a high of day, and NVDA continues to.
You know me, when Amazon and AMD are at their highs, just just pat myself on the old back.
Yes.
Good work today, Bags. You were really killing it. AMD looks painful, Nick. Oh, that's not. Did you say EA?
EA, yeah.
EA Sports. What is Energy Absolute? What is
Yeah, I was
this?
gonna say that looks like trash.
Electronic Arts.
Yeah, yeah, man. I don't know why they're pulling up this chart.
That was weird. Yeah, I don't know anything.
You know what it looks like? It
Big
looks like
ass.
GoDaddy.
Oh my god, 100%. Dude, and look at how that turned out. This
Yeah.
is gonna be huge.
It gave you that last bit of fuckery by dipping under everything.
Yeah.
Let's see if EA's doing that. I mean, it did it here back in
Dude, I
May.
think I should have picked if EA was closer to the breakout, like if it was sitting at all time highs.
You would choose it instead of ice.
Yeah.
You can change it if you want to change it.
No. I'm probably gonna
You
regret
have
that.
13 minutes and 30 seconds to change it.
All right. I'm good.
All right.
Yeah, the question with EA is just when, man, right? Like that's the bigger issue.
TTD also is another one that looks, I think,
The
just
trade desk.
ready to go. Yeah.
I
But
feel like every time I pull these charts up, it's deja vu. They all look the damn same.
testing highs and then rolling over.
We've been saying charts look the same for ages, it seems.
Everything's in a range, man. We I remember us talking about the lost decade, and every week we have these conversations of things looking good, and then they're and They continue to look good,
Apple,
but go nowhere.
Dennis wants to know about MBLY, Mobile Eye. I already know what GP is going to say. He's going to say IPO, blah, 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 blah. That's what GP is going to say. But Nick, I want to ask you.
I would have my alerts set at like 32 and 34, and I wouldn't touch it if it. I would like my alert at 32 would just to get my attention, and then I'd buy
Yeah.
it at 34.
32 wouldn't be an actionable alert. It would be like, hey, this is getting close to an
Uh,
actionable alert.
Yeah.
but
It's like Mrs. Baggs setting 14 alarm clocks in the morning, right? Like
yeah,
she's got to wake up 15 different times to finally wake up. She's going to kill me that I said that, but
I think Mobileye is pretty simple. You at any point in time here or wherever it's at, you get used. If you're long, your stop is 25 and change under 25. And if it breaks that on a closing basis on a daily, you get out, take your losses. So if you're buying closer to that 30 something level, then you buy less shares and give her a wider stop. If you're buying closer to the 25 level, you can buy more shares and a tighter stop, right? Like I think this could be a potentially big trade, but depends on where you buy it, right? But 25 seems to be your point. If it's below that, it closes below that. I wouldn't want to be long this.
I mean
uh,
everything for the other than freaking Meta, everything is getting bought up off the lows so far today. Apple's closing at all-time highs. It went green actually.
Yes.
Netflix is about to, man, if they have another hour, that thing probably go green.
No way. Another hour and it would just go lower. Piece of
Yeah, true
shit.
that.
Netflix doesn't need more time, it needs less time to trade.
I
I
mean,
also I know we already did our picks, not on my list, but I still like Cloudflare. I know I mentioned that last week.
I own Datadog.
It's funny how all the software names are weak today, though, right? It started with Now, ServiceNow.
I mean, IGV's not even down 1%. Inside bar for a weekly right now. Inside bar on the daily.
Yeah. Now it's just retesting the flag of the handle, but it was just interesting to see that the day started with small caps busting a move, right? And software coming in slightly after a pretty decent couple of weeks. And then small caps have literally done nothing since after the first hour, half hour. But yeah, I feel like there's always rotation within rotation within rotation.
Agreed. Nick, we pulled up our picks. We didn't pull up ice when you were talking about ice. There's your ice chart.
Yeah.
Already at or near an all-time high close. High 141.59. Yeah, near an all-time high close on the weekly. It looks good.
Another name that's like kind of sitting up at all-time highs that I like a lot is Honeywell.
Han,
Yeah.
really? Tell me about Honeywell. What makes you like Honeywell? Just the setup, just the
Uh,
chart?
I like the monthly and the weekly in particular. The daily, what I like about it right here is it's sitting on the 20 day. So if I was gonna like, if I was coming from cash and really wanted to start a position in Honeywell, I'd get involved here with the intent of probably adding to it versus the 50 day whenever that catches up. If I could
Yeah,
get my cost as close to 200 as possible or 205, I'd be pretty happy. But I don't know if that'd be if it breaks out. Obviously, that might not be possible. But I don't know. I like the base. I like the weekly and the monthly base more
I
than
like the monthly,
yeah,
Nick. I don't care too much about the weekly and the daily. I
yeah.
mean, you got a rolling over stochastic, which is going to lead to a rolling over RSI, which you're already seeing on the daily. the daily, quite frankly, I mean, I
You could
see what you're
certainly
saying
alert
here
it.
that it's holding this 210 area, but I would make that my stop for sure. I
Sure.
would I wouldn't even give it a full point down probably.
I mean, that or something alert at 220 and buy the breakout over 220.
Yeah. I don't think this is setting up necessarily to be a head and shoulders, but I could definitely see it pull into that 210 to 208 range,
Sure.
something like that. I could see that happening.
You guys want to talk about biotech at all?
Go
Sure.
for it.
Yeah.
So, have you guys been looking at XBI?
Yeah.
No, I have not. It looks pretty good though.
Yeah. So this, like it to your earlier point, Nick, if you're going to be long IWM,
You might as well.
where's the opportunities? And I would say in the names that potentially are making money, right, within the small cap space. So some of the IBM biotech, I mean IWM biotech names, or regional banks or something like that. From that perspective, is what I'd be looking to stay long. But to me, biotechs look pretty good here. You have essentially an inside quarter. Things are turning up. Looks pretty good. It had the big shakeout quarter two, closed near the highs. And if we take out that, what is that, 95.40 level here,
Yeah.
you have potential for like the bigger breakout, which is what the
Yeah,
200 week moving
I
average
like
is
it
like.
over 95.
So do you think if XBI and IBB like really start to like I think like XBI for instance, like if it clears 100, like that's the big breakout I think is through 100. Do you
Yeah,
think do you think all the Kathy stocks and Kathy ETFs run on the back of XBI and IBB? Yeah.
T-Doc will never run.
What's that?
T-Doc is never gonna run.
No, no, I'm not talking
Yeah,
about. I'm not.
I wouldn't say all the Cappy stocks. I would say ARC as a whole goes higher.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Her basket of bullshit will be higher than it is now if that happens. Right? That's ultimately what it is. And
And
as we're
Jason
talking
said, "Give me a
here,
Labu pit cookie style."
Hey, if Kathy is listening and she wants to hire me, I'm hireable.
Oh,
we're all
they reverse
hireable
splitted
because
the
Bill
shit out of
Chartis
Labu,
stuff.
didn't they?
Just saying.
I wonder if she has Chartis to say, please don't buy this, and she goes and buys it anyway.
Probably.
Look at that. Tesla's closing with some strength. It's good. AMD as well.
Dude, look at Apple.
And look at
He's
that. Netflix is not. Yes. Piece of shit.
Meta's not either.
Yep. No, well, Meta's better now. It's up, what, $3?
Wet noodle.
Amazon's pulling in too. Look at her push.
So is
Sassy
MicroStrategy.
Jassy, baby.
Yeah. It's interesting. Bitcoin's acting better, but coin is still red. Whereas on Friday, Bitcoin was not acting better, but coin nearly filled the entire gap. So Rivian
Tesla,
looks good as well. It just needs to clear that 1675 level.
if Tesla could just move sideways now for the next like 3 to 4 weeks, that'd be
No.
great.
Can we do it at like 400 first?
Yeah, Nick, come on.
It's got to rip
Normally it's GP throwing the wet blankets. Come on. Come on.
It's been sideways for a long time. Can we just be higher sideways for a while?
Yeah, it's been sideways since like wow, no, 2 years ago now.
Yeah. So can we first get to like 325 and then become sideways? Thanks.
3 minutes.
We're gonna get that
3
monthly.
minutes for 325?
3 minutes to go in the trading day.
I think that's the thing. Like if you're looking at like some of these like XBI, right? The monthly MACD crossed over bull, I think a couple of months ago. But if you're looking at the MACD and you're looking at it in more detail, the thing you want to notice is that it crossed bull, but it crossed bull while it's still negative territory. So it's always going to be kind of hesitant on the move. But now the monthly MACD cross is sitting positive. So like the chances of this move is sustaining and moving higher is a lot better. So like the same thing with Netflix, I mean Tesla here is on the weekly, the MACD crossed many weeks ago. But what's happening over the last 2 weeks is it just crossed into positive territory, right? So now the MACD is fully aligned for the price action to be higher. So I think a lot of times people see the MACD cross and ultimately are like, oh, it's going higher. But where it sits on that position of the MACD, like below the zero line or above the zero line, is an important conversation as well that people don't always look at, right? They just see the cross and like, oh my God, it's bullish. But dude, if you're negative 100 on the MACD and you're crossing bullish, it means there's just no sellers left. It doesn't mean it's going higher. But when you have momentum turn from negative to positive or above zero, you can see more buyers start to step in. All right, so this is some of the nuances of trading that you should be paying attention to, right? Like just because it's a cross, it doesn't mean it's bullish right away. It's got to have the other factors kind of kick in. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but that's
No.
just something I notice or I watch
Well, it
for.
just goes to the thing anything can trade, right? Like things get so oversold or overbought that the other outcome has to play out to some extent. It doesn't mean it goes 100% the other way, but it has to move somewhere. Buyers and sellers get exhausted, right?
Yeah.
1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute.
Hey, what do you think of gold?
Oh, going lower.
You think it's going lower?
I mean,
I
it's
don't
at
even know if
least
it's on
going
my
to come
list
into
anymore.
this. It's at
Oh, here
least
it is. I'm
come
like,
into
where'd it
this
go?
area of 212-ish.
Uh
It's going to lose 4 or 5 points here.
yeah,
At
maybe a
least.
little bit lower, but ultimately gold and Bitcoin will probably trade hand in hand.
Yeah, that's kind of what
Oh,
I'm
that's a
thinking too.
spicy take.
Dude, they're the same thing. One is the old generation, one's the new generation.
Yeah,
One's a rock, one's a digital rock.
yeah. I agree.
So from a monthly perspective, GLD is inside. Uh it's overbought quite a bit on the monthly. I don't actually look at this chart because I could care less, but that big volume sell bar is always a concern because it tried to, if you go to the daily, like if you're looking at this from a perspective, the one from April, that break higher was sold pretty hard. It tried, it basically broke down from there and tried to break higher again and got sold again. And we're still kind of selling here. But yeah, I would, this is one of those wait for it to actually break out moments again and again and again in gold.
Pencils down. Trading session is over. AMD just 20 some cents off its daily high today. That's not bad. That's not a
Yeah.
bad thing, right? That's some strength.
Look at the volume. Pretty
Yeah.
decent volume on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
day.
Yeah. Back to back days.
Yeah. Whereas, like, I don't think Amazon had a lot of volume.
No.
And Meta's volume was pretty low as well. Netflix volume is pretty low. Holy crap, did we
I'll be
even
back
crack
in
a
one
minute?
second.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate
I'll be
that.
back in 1 second.
Yeah, no worries.
Well,
Um, do you think Twitter is the best trade of all time?
do I think Twitter
Yeah.
is the best trade of
Yes.
all time?
Yes.
What do you mean? Elon
Those
buying
guys selling
Twitter?
it. I think Twitter would have been in the gutter if Elon hadn't bought it, right? Like those guys.
Oh yeah,
sell.
Twitter selling itself. Yes, I think they made more money than they were likely ever to make. I don't
Yeah,
know if that's the best trade of all time, but I think they sold when they should sold.
yeah, and they forced him to buy it. That was the funny part. Um, yeah. So my question always remains week after week is what's going to take what's going to be the reason for this market. And Bags, you always ask the question, so I'm asking you this time. What do you think is honestly going to take these names that have been basing in sideways, like we talked about TTD and other names, to actually gather enough momentum to push higher while the indices are sitting close to nosebleed territories?
Well, strength begets strength and weakness begets weakness, right? But at some point, a trend has to form,
Yeah.
right? So I think for some of these names, it's just the rest of the market has been so strong, it's putting money elsewhere. I mean that was what you were asking Nick and me. I didn't really get to answer it that well. I threw in my Bitcoin pick and we ran from there. Um, I think that's what the game is, right? Is finding the underappreciated asset to allocate your money into, or you trade out of your overvalued assets or those underappreciated assets. And at some point, this is you guys know how much I love my mega caps, but at some point, someone's going to say, "All right, I need to take some off the table of Microsoft here." Right? At some
Mm-hmm.
point, somebody's going to say, "I have to take some off the table of whatever X gain my Netflix position was, and what am I going to do with it?" That's not going to be sit on it and hoard it as cash. Where am I going to put it? And I think the flow of money from rotating out of some of these mega cap names will find. I mean, NVDA, right? That's exactly what I explained. What's happening to AMD? I mean, you've rode the NVIDIA train for a while. Well, let's throw some money in AMD. So I think that's what's going to happen. I don't see us having any massive collapse anytime soon based on the charts that I looked at. Um, can a correction happen? Yes, a correction can 10% in either way can happen almost at any given time for any given reason. So I'm not worried about 10% over the course of years, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and ultimately in this one, it'll probably be the quickest 10% you'll see, right? So because it's
Yeah, I
grinding.
mean we mentioned that way back when we started the pod was in my opinion cycles are shortening, right?
Yeah.
Like we're going through things so much quicker. Recessions happen and they're over with in a quarter, right? You have a massive fall. I mean, if this were 10 years ago, let's pull up the Netflix chart. If this were 10 years ago, would have
You watch
Netflix
though?
have been able to bounce back in less than 2 years to a
Yes, it did the exact same thing in 2013 off of Flickster. So probably not the greatest example, but yeah, it did the same exact thing in 2013. And it was similar scenarios. It was the potential recession that one actually manifested, but it was a very short one. We sold down 37% in the queues without an actual recession.
yeah.
So the price action, this price action makes sense to me. We never got something you sold off for, so we are back to where you sold it.
So there you go. I just think cycles are happening faster. I think
Oh, cycles are definitely faster, for sure.
rotation from one thing to another is happening faster. I think the old axiom of, and I've shared this chart too, of the money flow. I think that's still true, but I don't think it takes years for that cycle to play itself out. It's quarters now.
Do you think that accelerates now with the settlement going from T-3 to T-2 and eventually to T-1?
I don't know.
Because people can put money to
I
work
think
faster.
that's great that we're going to be at T-1 eventually. But I don't know.
A lot of people don't have margin
I
income.
think naturally it would have to, but I don't know.
Fair enough. I got a few more minutes, guys. I gotta run some errands.
Yeah,
But,
I got to pop off too. But
yeah.
love you guys. Great seeing you for back-to-back weeks. Hey, everybody, don't forget we'll be back Thursday, 11 a.m. this Thursday with Cookie, the Cookie Monster, the Pivotologist, on the pod. So we're looking forward to that intraday session with him. With that said, for my co-parts here, GP and JFDI, it's Bags. Love y'all, brothers. Peace out.
Guys,
Okay.
later.